Okay, here is the explanation for the exam that I sent you guys. Sissonville High School. Wasn't able to make it to class today, but essentially all I was going to do was spend some time talking about the exam. So that's what I'll do here. You're looking at a slide. This is not a mistake. I have the 4 major types of learning up for you to look at. The exam, I sent it to end grade, and I emailed it to you. I don't know if I can get it to show up on this. I'm not going to make you read it on this video, but it kind of looks like that. You can kind of see. I would go ahead and print this out, or just have it on your phone, or have it available so you can kind of look at it. Really, the take-home exam, which is due Friday, April the 10th, so you have until the very end of the week when you come back from spring break to have this done. I would at least go ahead and start looking at it now, in case you just want to zone out or check out for spring break, which I don't blame you. At least just kind of take a look at the test and kind of just get an idea of what you're going to be looking at. If you want to do it before your spring break starts Monday, more power to you. If you want to actually work on it during spring break, you can do that. Or if you want to wait till you come back and work on it the week that we're back, I've tried to make it to where you don't have to be working on this over your break if you don't want to be working on it over your break. But I want to go over part A really more than anything. We talked about learning in class. We also talked about memory, but I kind of want to take you through this a little bit. The first part of the exam, what I've asked you to do is select any serial killer. You guys seem to be pretty interested in serial killers. So I've asked you to select any serial killer you like. It can be anybody, living, dead, any country. Doesn't have to be just in the United States, man or woman, doesn't matter. And I'm asking you to do 5 things. First of all, identify the name, date of birth, where they were born, etc. That's pretty self-explanatory. A couple of sentences will work on that. Also, the second part, summarize the murdering. It says discuss the mode of operation. How did they do it? I mean, was there a specific way they went about doing it? Did they target certain kinds of victims? Was it like during a certain time of the day or night? Did they take them to certain locations? Just what was kind of the mode of operation? How many victims? When did the murdering begin and when did it end? So a well-developed paragraph there could work, so that you're kind of setting the stage. Now, part C is it's going to require a little more thought, and it's going to be more involved than the first 2 parts. I want you to explain why the murdering occurred, and I want you to explain it through each of the 4 models of learning that we talked about in class and that you see on the videos. Now, I posted these video lectures for you as well, so you should be able to easily go on YouTube, and I'm looking to make sure that the links are still up. They should be. Yes, you should easily be able to go to YouTube and find these. I posted them, I think, early in March. But if you have that email with the links, you can review the lecture on learning anytime you want to. But what I'm asking you to do, and you should have notes on these anyway, is identify classical conditioning, operant conditioning, cognitive learning, and observational learning, and explain the murders through each of those perspectives. And you're going to need several well-developed paragraphs for this part. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be showing me that you understand what each of these types of learning means and how to explain each of the components of each type of learning. Classical conditioning will be your biggest one. We spent a lot of time talking about classical conditioning, so let's say just hypothetically you pick Ted Bundy. I'm just picking one randomly. If you're going to explain his murdering through the classical conditioning model, then you would have to explain his actions, his murdering behaviors through the unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, conditioned stimulus, and conditioned response. So how would this model explain his killings? What would be the unconditioned stimulus for him, the unlearned stimulus? And what would be his unlearned response? Maybe he learned to associate an unconditioned stimulus with a conditioned stimulus, which produced a conditioned response. So just kind of review your notes on that. Also, if you want to talk about stimulus generalization, you don't have to do that. Oops, I went the wrong way on that. Sorry about that. I'm hitting a weird loop. There we go. You could talk about extinction if you want. And some of these models may explain the murders better than others. But just, at least cover those 4 main components. I'll go back to them of classical conditioning, which were these right here. The unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, conditioned stimulus, and conditioned response. Now, moving ahead, also if you were to pick Ted Bundy, I would prefer that you select someone that we did not cover in class. So I prefer you not pick Bundy, Gacy, Dahmer, or who else did we talk about? I think we also talked about Manson maybe a little bit. I would prefer you go in another direction. So let me get here. Now, operant or instrumental conditioning. Also explain this person's murdering through this type of learning. Could this person have learned through a series of reinforcements or punishments? Is it possible to say that Ted Bundy's murdering was positively reinforced? Did he get something for doing what he was doing? You could say that he could. I mean, he was doing something, or he was giving something, which was the awful things that he was doing. He was getting something out of it. He was getting excitement, or he was getting, sexual gratification. So this increased the chances that he would continue to murder, to do what he was doing. So you can kind of think about it that way. Also, just moving ahead here, cognitive learning. How could this model of learning explain your serial killer's murdering behaviors? This is learning through the process of cognition. You could look at it in terms of problem-solving approaches. Probably, when you're looking at your serial killer, you might be looking at some of the heuristics. That would be what I would kind of think about a little bit. So could this model of learning explain the murders, or how could it do so? Stereotyping might play into this a little bit. So I'm asking you to think outside of the normal parameters a little bit for this. And then observational learning. Is it fair to say that maybe, like in Ted Bundy's case, I'm going to use him as my example, sometimes we learn by watching others. He made the case at the end of his life when he was interviewed that he actually viewed violent pornography. He actually observed and watched some of these sort of violent, aggressive sexual behaviors, and he kind of learned from that. So you could make the case that he learned some of this through observational learning. Now, you cannot use Ted Bundy as one of your examples. I'm sorry, just because I'm kind of using that here. But you kind of get the idea. I want you to think about each of these types of learning and explain, again, the murdering behaviors through each type. Now, the other thing I'm going to kind of skip through here, well, hopefully, I'll get rid of this. The other part of this, I'm going to skip down to part E. Discuss how each theory of crime we discussed in class could possibly explain the murders. Now, we talked about several theories of crime. We talked about the sociological theories of crime. We talked about psychological, biological, and social psychological theories of crime. And I sure thought I had them on this PowerPoint, but it doesn't look like I have them here. So, but I will find them here quickly. But you should have, at any rate, you should have them. Maybe I'll put them here. Here we go. They should be at the very end of the serial killers presentation that I did in class. I'm going to get to them real quick. Almost there. And here we go. There we go. And we start with sociological theories of crime. Again, you should already have seen these in class. You should have notes on these. So describe for me hypothetically how Ted Bundy's killing could be explained through structural theories. Is it fair to say that the environment, or lack thereof, forced him to perpetrate these crimes just out of necessity? I would argue probably no in that case. What about subcultural theories? Did he choose to engage in crime because he was attracted to this lifestyle? Maybe. You might be able to make the argument. Could you make the argument biologically? I need to make this bigger so you can see it. And again, you should have these in your notes here. Let's see. There we go. That was the first one we talked about, sociological. Can we make an argument that maybe there was something biologically going on, or maybe he was genetically predisposed? Possibly. Other psychological theories of crime, not learning necessarily, but maybe he had a personality disorder. We talked about sociopaths and antisocial personality disorder and conduct disorder and oppositional defiant disorder. Maybe there are some mental health disorders that could explain why this person would commit crimes, like schizophrenia, for example. And then we have social psychological theories of crime. Learning theory, we kind of went through those already. Social labeling, maybe some of these killers as children were labeled as deviants, or just stereotyped themselves, or labeled as losers, or whatever. which maybe that had something to do with perhaps why they committed their crimes. So just think about these things. Let me get this back up here. And again, if we were in class, I could have taken questions about this, but I just kind of wanted to take a second and explain that, and hopefully that'll kind of set you on course for that part of the exam. That's 100 of the 150 points for this part of the exam. It's just the part we went over. And the second page is pretty self-explanatory. It's just asking you to provide an example of each of the types of memory that we talked about in class, and explain why that is. For example, the primacy effect. Whatever example you give me, tell me why that represents the primacy effect. I don't think that part B is very difficult. Shouldn't be. But at any rate, if you have any questions, guys, about any of this stuff, feel free to email me. I'll be checking my emails over the break. I'll still be working over the break. But you have, like I said, until April the 10th to get this done. So, okay, all right. And I apologize for not being in class today. Just one of those kinds of things. But basically, we're still right on course. This counts as our class. This is what I was going to do with you anyway today. So, see you after break. Please be safe, and look forward to seeing you guys a week from Monday. Thanks so much.